welcome back to a highly anticipated return of the Cover 7 podcast and YouTube show. Thank you guys for your patience as we took a small break. Now we are back, and we are very excited to introduce to you the State of the Franchise series. Daniel and I are going to be rolling out a State of the Franchise episode, breaking down the current status of every single team in the ELF. So we'll have episodes coming out every week leading up to the season, taking you through the off-season, the question marks, and the key points heading in for each of the 17 teams heading into the ELF 2023 season. Daniel, are you excited to be a part of this series?
I can't wait. We had to get some microphones. That's why we spent so long away from the podcast. But now we have microphones. We're ready to talk about the ELF. Someone told me not to call it the ELF. Someone told me to call it the ELF because the ELF is weird. Because we don't call it Nuffle. But
drop it in the chat. Do you say ELF or ELF? Let us know. Yes, we sound much better. We have microphones. We have better lighting. And we're ready to kick off this series, man. And we're kicking it off with the new kid on the block. The highly anticipated and newly named Paris Saints. Daniel, I know you've been researching the Saints all season. Both of us have talked to Marc Mattioli, the head coach, and quarterback Zach Edwards, who we'll get into. Check out our other videos. We'll put them right here on the tube. But Daniel, give us the top line. Who are the Paris Saints and who's leading them into the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think they came onto the scene with a big bang. And that was, Marc Mattioli was a accomplished coach in Europe before he came to Paris. His first year in Europe, he coached the Parma Panthers, took them to a championship, one they hadn't won in, I think, over 10 years. Did a great job with very limited players. They weren't like the Linemen, who have a very deep roster. He just used players really well and showed what a great coach he is. Comes from has great background, great pedigree in coaching. Coached at Stanford and Vanderbilt. Both his defensive back coaches. He could have stayed there and done well. It wasn't like he came over here because he had no choices. He just wanted to explore a bit more. He wanted to kind of just live his life a bit before he settled down. There's no doubt he will go back to the States and be a successful coach. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 10, 15, 20 years we see him in the NFL, to be honest. But yeah, then he spent 2 seasons with Parma, won the championship first year, second season, had a great year, but they had a lot of injuries. And they played well, but they lost in the playoffs. They're still a good team, though. And then at the end of the season, he went over to Elf, with the Leipzig Kings, and was the receivers coach there. Did a great job with a great receiving core. Had Shantavius
Jones, the NFL receiver.
Yeah, and then they had obviously Davide Wolf. Did a great job there. And then, got announced as the Paris coach this season. And then his first 2 signings were the 2 most electric players last year, arguably snubbed for MVP. Could have been co-MVPs, right? It was Zach Edwards and Carl Sweet, the Barcelona Dragons receiver and quarterback. Really? Both those guys, I think, took them to the playoffs, right? They had a good team, and it was a far improved team from last year. But it was those guys. They were the catalyst to get that team to the playoff. And, that's 2 amazing signings off the bat.
Yeah, certainly made a splash. I mean, these 2 were definitely the best duo in the ELF last season. Kyle Sweet, as a sort of rookie in Europe, made some amazing catches. He could stretch the field vertically. He could run any route. And Edwards, we knew what Edwards was going to bring. He was, even on a bad team in 2021, he made the Dragons worth watching. And now we saw last year the fruits of his labor paying off as they hit the playoffs, made the postseason, and really had a magical season. So the box office factor is definitely there for Paris. Now, Daniel, I know there were some other receivers besides Kyle Sweet that you're really excited about watching in Paris this year.
Yeah, so number 1 was Remy Berthelin, a French receiver who Zach played with in 2021 in Barcelona. The Dragons. Again, the 2 paired up to have an amazing season. Obviously, Remy being a European, though, and I think he was one of the top receiving Europeans in the league in the Elf's inaugural season. And he also is bringing with him the Vienna Vikings tight end Adria Botella Moreno, who Zach also played with in Spain in his first season in Europe. Played for a Division 2 team in Spain. And there's those connections all around. Every receiver he has, well, every starting receiver he's probably going to have, he's played with in the past. And you cannot ignore that, right? I mean, a lot of the other quarterbacks playing for the elf team, the starting for the elf team, they're not going to have that same connection and chemistry. And so I think off the bat, that gives these guys a step up, as well as being, do you know what I mean? They were like arguably league MVPs. They both led the league. Talking about Carl Sweet and Zach Edwards, they both led the league last year in their respective fields, right? Number one receiver, number one QB in the league, pretty much all round. So, and this just seems like an unbelievable passing attack from Barcelona this year. I mean, from Paris, sorry.
Yeah, well, it's a easy slip up, right? To say Barcelona there. A lot of the same crew that we've seen before in Spain, but yeah, I'm really excited about this passing attack. I think they're going to be throwing the ball all over the place, and Paris will be a fun team to watch. Now I'm going to switch it over to some guys that maybe ELF fans haven't seen before. They know about Kyle Sweet. They know about Zach Edwards. They probably know about Adria Botella Moreno. But one guy that Paris signed that they don't know is Dawson Dales. He is a big, strong linebacker who played for Marc in Italy, former Division II All-American, broke a bunch of school records for tackles. And he just seems like a throwback player, to be honest, when you watch him. He was playing running back, tight end, defensive end, middle linebacker. I mean, he's just looks like Brian Urlacher type guy out there making plays. I think the fans are going to love him, to be honest. Another linebacker I really like in this defense is Digan Gumas Gachanga, a French linebacker who just came back from playing in Canada for Bishop's Gators University, I believe. So playing a high level, similar to NCAA, and he's a French citizen, so he doesn't count. He counts as a European. So you're getting two really experienced linebackers in the middle of your defense, which is really exciting if you're a Paris Saints fan, for sure.
Yeah, there's two great linebackers to start with, but I mean, they've also picked up a number of big boys as well from around Europe, not just in France, specifically from Spain. Who are some of those guys, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. Another former Barcelona Dragon is Edwin Elio. He's a defensive tackle, a big nose guard, weighs over 300 pounds. He'll be like a run stopper in the middle of their defense. They also signed maybe the best left tackle in Europe in Mamadou Doumbouya, who last year played for the Berlin Rebels. He's been around the block. He's played in Frankfurt. He's played in Spain. He's played for the French national team. I mean, he is just known in Europe as one of the best offensive linemen available. And he's bringing his older brother, Mamadou Sy, who's a defensive lineman. So now you have two really experienced guys who've been on the big stages in Europe to not only be great players, but also leaders in the trenches. So look for Paris to show some toughness at the line of scrimmage next season.
For sure. I think an area that they're struggling slightly, though, I don't know if struggling is the right word, but DB, right? I mean, when the French team got announced, you've always known about these French DBs, right? They're good. I mean, there's a lot of athleticism and they're not short on skill players in France, right? There's known to be a lot of good receivers and DBs, something that other European teams don't have. And you've seen this with European imports in ELF last year and in Europe in general. The three of those DBs that the Paris Saints couldn't secure were Tony Anderson, right, who's signed for Frankfurt Galaxy, who was at Swarco last year. He's had legitimate experience in the States. Kevin Forte, who's a European vet, obviously been through the IPP, was a crucial component of the Hamburg's defense, played in GFL as well. And finally, Mathieu Beard. Again, a lot of experience in Europe, has proved himself time and time again. And those are three key French DBs that you would have almost assumed would have been on the French team automatically, right, on the Paris team. But I think it's that thing, right? It's like these guys want to be imports. They want to be big-time players for other teams as opposed to, just another domestic guy. They could be a great domestic guy, but you're not as big of a deal if you're not a European import. And so I think that definitely plays into it. I think their experience in the in the European leagues and being the guy, being the import, has definitely played an impact in them not signing for the Paris Saints. And I think that's something that Paris are really gonna miss this year. But they've still got another American import spot on defense, and I really think they're going to get a DB.
Yeah, me too. I think you almost have to get a DB, especially with how stacked their defensive line is. They're bringing a lot of talent, to the defensive line. You have two guys with, college football experience at linebacker. But yeah, defensive back is definitely a little bit of a question mark, I think. Maybe the only question mark for the Saints going into the season. That being said, Daniel, we are going to predict the Paris Saints schedule, breaking down week by week. Are you ready? Daniel, start us off. Paris Saints at Cologne Centurions, June 3rd. Cologne is psyched. The Saints are making their very first debut in the ELF. Who's winning that game?
I think Saints come out and blow the Cologne Centurions out of the water and get a big old W. I think they do this because Cologne.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think Cologne has struggled. Not struggled. They're kind of. They've always been on the border of being a good team, right? They've always nearly been a good team, but they never have been. I think they've always relied on a few players to make plays for them. I don't think they necessarily have the talent or the depth of talent to compete with the top teams. And I think they've shown it the last 2 years. I don't think much will change this year. So I think this is a win. And I think Zach and the rest of the guys have something to prove. I think Paris has something to prove and show that they deserve to be an elf. So I think this is their statement game.
Yeah, no, I think it's a win for sure, and probably a blowout. I'm not feeling the Centurions right now. But week 2 is a banger. Stuttgart Surge coming to Paris. First home game for the Saints. Boy, I'm looking forward to June 10th, man. That's going to be a great game.
Yeah,
Surge are going to be great. That's tough, man. You know what? I hate to say it. I'm going to give it to the Surge. Jordan Newman is a proven coach. It's a new situation, but yeah, that's a big matchup. I think maybe the Surge get them in the first round. Maybe they'll see each other again. Daniel, how do you feel about week 3? Another banger.
Yeah, Ryan Fire. I think it's going to be. I mean, we know Ryan Fire have been signing players left, right, and centre, and kind of, I guess, sidestepping any sort of salary cap that might be involved in Elf paying players under the table. I don't know, I've made that up. It could be true. But I think it's going to be a sold-out game. I think it's in Dusseldorf. And so last year they had great attendance. The games there were unbelievable. I think it's going to be a big game. But I think Ryan Fire take it.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. Ryan Fire might be my favorite team in the ELF right now. I think they're really doing a great job.
They're not my favorite team, but I think they're probably the best team.
So week 4, I got Paris bouncing back, getting a big win in Frankfurt on the road in a hostile environment. I think they're too good to lose 3 games in a row. I think they bounce back and finish 2-2 here with the first quarter of the season. Boy, it doesn't really get much easier. How do you feel about them about hosting Hamburg?
I think that'd be a great game. I think home game will be in a lot. I think these two teams are quite evenly matched. I think Paris actually have the stronger roster, have the deeper team, but Hamburg I think can be a better team. I think they've shown for the last few years they're a great team. So I think it's going to be a tight game, but I think home field advantage will take it, and I think Paris will get this one.
Yeah, I think maybe that's a pivotal point in the season for them, right? Because they're probably going to drop one of those games we talked about earlier, if not both. So this is a huge game for them, week 5. Could set the tone, really. But week 6, yeah, another tough game at the Surge. I almost think whoever loses the first game between them will win the second. Because it's 2 really good teams with 2 really good coaches. So since I picked the Surge initially, I'll pick the Saints to win this rematch.
I think the reason the Saints will lose the first and win the second is because they're a new team as well. Even though they have got a lot of experience together, specifically talking about Zach and his receiving core, but the rest of the team is new. They haven't played together before, and Marc will be trying to bring a few bits together. But I think at this point in the season, they'll start to find their groove. And I think if that first game is close, and they lose, I think Paris win the second.
Yeah, I'm with you. Do you feel the same way about the Ryan Fire?
No, I think Ryan Fire take it both times.
Yeah, fair enough.
Ryan Fire looks so good, and obviously, yeah, they just look too good. I think they take it. I think offensively it might be evenly matched. I think both offenses will go to work, but I just think that the Paris defense will struggle against Ryan Fire's offense.
Yeah. You know who's back as well is Glenn Tonga will be back after the suspension. So
yeah, exactly.
That makes a difference as well. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that puts them at 4-3, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Just over halfway point. I got them winning against Frankfurt again. I'm not feeling the Galaxy as much this season, to be honest, as you can tell.
Last year they were unimpressive last year. They made a push to the playoffs, but I don't think they deserve to be there. But next game, Barcelona Dragons, this is a big one. I mean, 6 players, former Barcelona Dragons players, now playing for Paris, right? I think this is a big game for those guys. And they want to win, and they want to win big. Because I think they're a bit salty after leaving Barcelona. There was rumours swirling that things weren't all great in the front office in Barcelona, right? Players weren't getting paid, things weren't moving the way they should be. This is all rumours, obviously. I have no evidence to back this up. Well, some evidence. Anyway, yes, and so it's just, I think Paris go in there, Zach Edwards specifically, and goes in there with a purpose, and they give one to Barcelona.
Yeah, it's almost a revenge game for Edwards and his teammates, like you said. There's no way they can go to there and lose. At Hamburg, I think Hamburg is a tough place to play. We've seen the crowd. Plus, I mean, the team is very good. But I think Hamburg, while they recruited a lot of new players, they did lose some leaders on the team, right? Kassim Edebali, the linebacker Miguel Book, some really, really solid veterans. So I just think like the talent of the Saints keeps them going here, and they pull out a close one in Hamburg and win this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to tell. I mean, we have to see Hamburg's offense, right? Because last year they were run 10 times out of 10, right? And they lent on Glenn Tonga all the way. He is not there. Brett Morgan's a new OC. Brett Morgan's a very savvy coach and also a great recruiter, right? And so I think whoever he brings in is going to do the job, and he's going to offer up a very diverse offense. So I think we need to wait for the first few weeks to see what Hamburg are like. But I think it's going to be a very different team to the one we saw offensively last year.
Okay, so after that Hamburg win, that puts them at 7-3 with 2 games left in the season. So that puts them at 7-3, and they might be, if the Ryan Fire are as good as we think, they're probably just off first place in that division. So next week, Barcelona comes to town. Do you see them getting the win again?
Yes, comfortably. I think Barcelona's roster has been depleted as well. I think they lent heavily on Zach and Kyle, and they're both gone. They've lost a lot of players to other teams. They're not the same team. I can't see them making the playoffs. Yeah,
I see them finishing out the season on a high note, beating Cologne. I hate to say it, Centurions fans, but I don't think they'll be playing for anything as far as the Centurions in Week 12 at the beginning of September. And I think Paris will be. So that puts them at 9-3. And what we're predicting is that's probably the top wild card, I'd imagine, or division winner, depending on how good the Ryan Fire are or Surge.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll take that wild card spot. I think Elf introducing that was great. I think there was not enough teams making the playoffs last year even. And so, yeah, it's good they addressed that this year.
Absolutely. So we got a 9-3 record for the Saints. They've got some ballers. They've done a great job recruiting French players, and probably an even better job recruiting Europeans and Americans to the roster. Any last words on the Saints before we head into the next episode of our State of the Franchise series?
They win the wild card, they lose in the playoffs.
I could see it. I could see it. I think we know who Daniel likes so far after this offseason. Yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe. We also have episodes, previous episodes, interviews with Zach Edwards, the Saints quarterback, as well as Marc Mattioli, the Saints new head coach. So check those out, and thanks for watching.